keyboard shortcuts I've mentioned have been oriented toward PCs. They, of course, exist for Macs too. I'll make this excellent little document available, but all you need to do is Google keyboard shortcuts for Excel, and voila. This one is particularly impressive. Notice the author talks about the obvious Control-Z for undo. You can also look up keyboard shortcuts in Excel under Help. Now, I've taken some quick screenshots from a few pages of the very useful PDF I showed you earlier. As well as undo, cut, copy and paste are always useful. Paste Special is also extremely useful. You can choose just to paste the value in the cells, the formatting, the width of the column. It's amazing. Okay, I've started a new workbook. These are also called spreadsheets. Let's say, for the purposes of the exercise, I'm collecting information about who gets paid what, and trying to work out what people have in common and what they don't, and trying to use the data to see if I can spot any factors that influence the pay levels of these people. As gender, height and place of birth or postcode have been all said to influence how people do in life, I'm using these statistics to see if any of these factors are backed up by data. Obviously, in real life, 14 data points do not a valid set of statistics make. I'd better add their surname, I suppose. So I've inserted a column to the left of what was column A. I put my cursor in cell B1, I've clicked on the paintbrush and then painted cell A1 to make it match the formatting of B1. I'm almost finished adding data. You'll see that the age column has been made skinnier to match the width of the data entered. I'm about to add the income, but I've noticed that Wagga Wagga is too wide for its column, so I need to make that column wider if I want to be able to see all the text. You can make columns wider or thinner by double-clicking on the divider at the top of the column, on the right-hand side of the selected column. This is set up in Preferences, and you don't even need to have that column selected to do this. You can also do it by putting your mouse on the divider and just dragging it to where you want it to go. Okay, ready to add income. I've decided it'll all be easier to follow if I put some colour in. I used the bucket icon to colour the subject, the top row, grey, and I'll colour the male-female rows to help me differentiate them. Here's my next tip. When you're adding data, it can be fatally easy to enter data over in the right-hand column, like G, against the wrong name way back over in column A. If you colour the rows, as in the next picture, it makes it much easier on the eyes and the brain. I've decided to colour the males light green and the females something else. Having done the first males row, I could either select each row again and click on the fill button, which is the bucket. That's time consuming. I could use the keyboard shortcut Control-Y, repeat last action. Or here's my next tip. Double click on the paintbrush while you're in the cell you want to copy, and then paint each row as you need to. The double click lets you paint non-continuous cells, and it will keep painting for you until you click the paintbrush again or save. Having done the males rows, I did the females using the double-click paintbrush. Note the dotted line around row 3. That's the line I had selected when I double-clicked the paintbrush. Excel will keep that line twinkling until I finish the job. So there's a whole lot of information there. Just using the data sort function will show you who earns more, male or female. Whether being born in a big city means you'll earn more. Is height a factor? So the urge to start playing with the data can be irresistible at this point. Here's a really pro tip. If you've entered all your data and checked it, preferably by asking someone with a fresh pair of eyes to do it, save your work and then save as another document and play with that one, play with the copy. If you mess up your original data, it can mean hours of work and floods of tears. Trust me on this. Also, I once stopped an annual report going to print with a really embarrassing error in it by having a fresh pair of eyes look over the financial statement, which was in Excel. Even a finance department is staffed by mere mortals. Okay, so I clicked on Data and then Sort. It asked me what criterion I wanted to use, so I went by male and female. Next I looked at age, then place of birth, not immediately useful. Even height appeared to show something interesting. So even a very quick and easy sort of the data seems to show that men earn more than women, age seems to be irrelevant, height has a direct correlation with income in most men, and even the lowest paid and shortest male earned more than all but one woman. You can also refine your sort. By telling Excel to sort on this and then also that, you can end up with some very precise information. Women earn less than men. Both women and men in capital cities earn more than their peers in regional cities, and only the woman born in London earns as much as the lowest paid man. I'll point out what I hope that people have already spotted. The data only shows where people were born. It is simplest to make the assumption for our purposes today that they are also working in the same city. We also tend to assume that they are all being paid to do the same job. Otherwise, if you're comparing Athol the lawyer in Brisbane with Kelly the bus driver in Bunbury, the whole thing falls down. Remember, the data you don't have can matter as much as the data you do. On to the very useful adding up function. Note that you don't need to select the cells. Excel will assume that you want to use the numbers directly above the cell you're in. In a row of figures, you simply select the first empty cell to the right of the figures you want to work with. So I clicked on the Sum button and I selected average, as a total of the years is not useful, but average might be. Here's another really pro tip. Autosum works for both rows and columns. Just select an empty cell to the right or below the cells you want to sum and type Alt+. And on a Mac that's Command-Shift-T. Excel will guess the range you're trying to sum and insert the sum function in one step. If you want to be more specific so that Excel doesn't have to guess, first select the range you intend to sum, including the cell where you'd like the sum function to be. Finally, you can use Autosum to add both row and column totals at the same time for an entire table. Just select a full table of numbers, including empty cells, below and to the right of the table, and use the shortcut. Excel will add the appropriate sum functions in the empty cells, giving you column totals, row totals, and a grand total in a single step. Before Excel performs the function for you, it allows you to double-check that you have, in fact, selected exactly the cells you want to compute with. It shows the workings both in the working cell, which in this case is D16, and up in the dialog bar. If all is correct, you merely click on the green tick or enter. If not, you can physically type in the destination of the cells up in the bar, or drag the selection with your mouse, or use the arrow keys. If you want the same function to apply in the cell next door, rather than do it all over again, you can just click on the little square at the lower right-hand corner of the first cell, the sum cell, drag it to the next cell, and Excel will obligingly do the same computation for the next column. You'll note that it's done this for column E, even though it's still referring to column D. So now we have an average age and average height, neither of which is particularly useful. However, an average wage could be really useful. Note the results when we do the same thing to the right again. Under column F, Excel is basically saying, what? Because there are no figures to add up and then average. So when you see #div/0! It means you're making a mistake somewhere and asking Excel to compute the impossible. Note also that the average income is not formatted the same as the other numbers. To fix those two errors, I simply selected cell F16 and hit delete to clear the formula. C that it does not affect cell G16, however. That's the picture with the figure 1 next to it. So then I can change the formatting of G16 in two ways, by using the paintbrush or selecting the cell and fixing it through Format Cells. I used the paintbrush, so that's the picture with the 2 next to it, so I still have the coloured background of the cell I copied, easily fixed by just going back to the background fill button and selecting No Fill. That's picture number 3 on this page. One cell function I haven't mentioned yet is called Merge Cells. I've added a row to the original data set to illustrate. It's the pink row at the bottom, Mr. Ollie overend. I select the 2 cells I want to merge. The function is under Alignment, which I find a bit strange, but I guess it's the only place they could put it. So tick Merge Cells, like this, and you get this warning. Excel does have ways to merge cells and keep both bits of information, which I'll come to, but right now I'm going to say go ahead, because I want to show you what happens when you merge cells and then try to sort your data. So I went ahead and merged these 2 cells. You'll see that in the merged cell, which now stretches across 2 columns, there is now only the M for male. Now I'm going to ask Excel to sort this table again. Computer says no. Merging cells is usually done because you want to see your information in a particular way. You may want to have a lot of information across the page at the top in individual columns, and then you need to squeeze lots of text into the cells underneath. You may want to put a graph or a text box in the cell and need more room to do that. You can merge the cells to allow lots of room for that, but then you can't sort your data. And yet, if you go online and Google merge cells in Excel, there's plenty of help. There is, apparently, a way to merge cells and keep all the information. It's out of my league, though. Generally, I recommend not merging cells unless you really need to. Another reason not to do it is that if you are pasting information from one Excel document, say your working document, into another, the grand final document, you can't place the information into a merged cell without double-clicking first in the cell. It's a small nuisance, but it can get annoying. Another thing that can be difficult to manage is when your document gets larger, if you're entering data down the page and can no longer see your headings up the top. Here's a tip for that. Split the pane. See up on the top left-hand side where I've inserted an arrow? If you grab that little square, the one with 2 horizontal lines, with your mouse and pull down, it splits the worksheet like so. The cursor shape will change to this, 2 parallel lines with an arrow above and below. It's much smaller in real life. Click on that, hold down and pull down, and this happens to your spreadsheet. Above the new grey line, the headings on line 2. Below the grey line, you can roll the page up and down to suit you. See how the lower pane now starts at row 21? Very handy if you have hundreds of rows of data. Let's return to the data as it was. Ollie is no longer with us. I've done 2 things here. First, I selected those cells that I put an average in, and I just dragged them away from the rest of the data. It doesn't change their function, just their location on the page. And I did another sort, first the females and then the males, to show who earned what in ascending order within each group. Now this will make the graph that I'm about to do look nice and neat.